Hello everyone, it's Belena with Aspire to the Self, going over this week's energies. So this week we are going to have two different moon phases. We are going to have the full moon and we are going to have the waning moon. So the full moon, remember, is the amplification of energies. Whatever our intentions are, it is going to magnify that. And the waning moon is all about release, to let go of things that aren't serving us, that get in the way of whatever our intentions are. Okay? July 13th is our full moon, and it's going to be a super moon. This year we will have 3 super moons. We've already undergone one, and we will be in the second this month, and then in August we will go through the third. And 3 of those super moons and that kind of time frame is just about purging and releasing things that no longer serve us or our growth. Okay. This full moon is also going to be in Capricorn, and Capricorn is the main energy of that is responsibility, stepping up, holding ourselves accountable in order to lead the lives that we wish to lead. Owning up to what we are doing to sabotage whatever we are trying to manifest in our lives, or whatever life that we are trying to attain for ourselves. What are we doing that is blocking that? Pluto will also be going into the full moon, and anytime Pluto comes around, that energy is very heavy. It's very weighted. It's going to stir up fears and really dark feelings. And the dark feelings are going to be something similar to what you undergo in the spiritual awakening process, which is the dark night of the soul. And I'll get more into that here in a bit. So we're just going to release what is heavy and keeping us down. We're going to let that go. In the full moon, we're going to set our intention to release whatever is weighing us down and from experiencing what we are wishing to experience. So the chakra that coincides mostly with the energies right now would be the solar plexus. The solar plexus is all about self-esteem and personal power. So remember, solar plexus is here, okay? And it makes up the organs stomach, abdomen, upper intestines, liver, gallbladder, kidney, pancreas, adrenal glands, and spleen. And the solar plexus is the process of individuation of the ego and personality that's separate from our inherited identity of the tribe. Personal power is how our soul relates to its external world, such as with our tribe. How your soul relates to that. How we relate to and understand ourselves. Self-esteem. You got self-esteem, self-respect, and self-discipline. Again, the responsibility of our decisions and holding ourselves accountable. Ability to generate actions, ability to handle a crisis. Self-esteem. How we feel about ourselves and how it's mirrored in what we attract in our relationships and situations that reflect and reinforce this energy. Remember, whatever you put out there, you get back. So if you have low self-esteem, and that is the energy that you are exerting out to others, it's all in your auric field, you just have low self-esteem, well, that's going to be mirrored in whatever partner you try to attract. That's going to be mirrored into situations that are going to show up that coincide with that fear. Okay. This goes into self-care. So whenever we make good choices for our mind, body, and spirit, this is how we increase our self-esteem. This is how we get to a deeper understanding of ourselves and doing things for the self. Self-acceptance. When you live your life according to your beliefs and what you truly hold as important to you, you will get that self-acceptance. And once you have that, it shouldn't matter what anyone else thinks or how anyone else sees of you. Because, like I said before in some of my other lives, in the end, you're all you have, and your soul is an infinite energy thing. I want to call it a being, but it's not. Your soul is going to be all that you take from this life to the next or whatever. Living authentically. Which goes into getting rid of toxic relationships, beliefs that weakens our spirits and weighs us down and is not in alignment with our true selves. With the solar plexus, I see this play out with usually people that undergo like abuse. I've seen it personally and a lot of female friends where they either go through some kind of abuse and they end up developing some kind of abdominal intestines issue, like irritable bowel syndrome, because they can't handle the world, they can't handle the perception of themselves with the environment they have, and it's just the lack of trust that it will get better, and just feeling powerless. That can, what I've really found out with, like, say, intestinal issues, it's usually stress, and it usually has to do with the self, and it usually has to do with your environment. And if it doesn't feel conducive to your mind, body, and spirit, which like abuse, you're gonna have a complete rejection of that. Okay, so just releasing others' expectations of us, like our external world. I mean, to be a woman, they got different standards of beauty. They've got, you can't be this, you can't be that. Your partners, your family, what they expect of you. But if it's not in true alignment with your true self and your blueprint for your purpose of this world, then you need to release that, and you will be happier once you do. Be who we want to be, not who other people want us to be, not be who the world wants us to be. Fears of this, fear of obesity, aging, rejection, criticism, not being enough. Something that I will talk about is, I know people who have had a fear of obesity. It was a big one. I had to grow up in this. And it's the person who had the fear, it was a reasonable fear because of what they saw. Their external environment said that everyone in their bloodline was overweight, which can stem from a lot of issues. And in the history of that person, their family had a generational trauma of abuse and such, and it ends up manifesting into being overweight, because your weight is something you control, and either you take it one of two ways. You either get really skinny, like have anorexia or bulimia, or you can, go into self-loathing, which ends up going into obesity. I mean, of course, there's other things out there that can make you those things and it not be, and it be genetic. But for these instances, they weren't. So the person I'm talking about, they had a fear of being overweight. And I've seen a few of these, actually. Or they've had some kind of traumatic moment in their life where they were bullied for being overweight, and now their entire life is all focused on being thin, having the appearance of being healthy. That ideal of perfection of beauty, I've seen that. And this person, not only, I mean, taking care of your body is self-care, but if you overdo it, you're being more harmful than anything. So say if you're being too fit, too healthy, you're not actually healthy if you take it to the extreme. If you're consistently worrying all day, every day, what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, how much you have to work out to burn that off, that's unhealthy. So it's counteracting what you're trying to do. You're going to get different issues now. So it all comes from bodily acceptance. Because this person, like I said, this is a family thing. I grew up, I actually had anorexia because I grew up with the environment that you had to be thin, or you had to be thin, not just healthy, thin. You had to be thin. You had to be fit to be accepted by the tribe. Otherwise, something would be said to you negatively, and they would make you feel bad about yourself. So that, emitting toxic behaviors because you're over obsessiveness of not being fat. So letting that fear take control of you. So I had that, and what really helped me was when I went through a period of isolation. I've gone through several periods of isolation. It definitely feels like that's a big part of my soul, and what's required of it is to be independent, not to need anything or anyone. But part of my isolation, the first time I've ever experienced isolation, I had to release all other expectations of me, including the world, including partners, what was their standard of beauty versus what was my standard of beauty. So I took, hey, this is the body that I feel the most happiest in. And I can, I don't hate food. I don't hate my relationship with food. I don't hate myself when I eat it, and I don't completely hate working out anymore. I had to find a workout that didn't make me hate it. I had to find, like, say, a meal plan, a lifestyle that I could live with, that would give me the results that I could live with, that I was happiest with, and that's how I lived authentically with my body image. You know, it took me a really long time because I used to work out all the time. I have meal plans. It like completely obsessed my life, and I just wasn't happy. So I've had to go through that process of releasing that generational trauma and of releasing that fear of aging. That's another one. Always wanting to look young, you know, especially, like I said, to be a woman. You fear growing old. You fear the crone age. You fear because of what the society tells you happens with older women. You're less desirable. You're just less because you no longer have that youthful appearance, or you no longer can procreate. That's a big thing too. So you have to release those. You have to, or you will never truly be happy. And it will, like I said, when we get to here in a minute, it will manifest in other ways physiologically to make you go to the doctor, to where you have to like acknowledge what's going on inside. Okay. Self-esteem is also goes hand in hand with intuition. Okay, many people block their intuition because they don't understand it. They don't understand what intuition is. People think that intuition is the same as prophetic sight. Okay, prophetic sight is where you can see the future, you know, versus intuition is reading energy data, you know, which is whatever's going on around you at that moment, reading the energy of the room. Body language, facial expressions, that those would be sciences that support this. Is you can read it. If something's going to issue you a red flag, like say if you're in danger, or if you feel like something's good for you, it's going to feel happy, it's going to feel bright, you're going to feel glowy, you're going to feel this is good for me. So just reading the energy of the room and making decisions on it. Intuition can also be like come to you in symbols. It can come to you in dreams with symbols and meanings. It can come to you in angel numbers, seeing like 555, 333, 414, something like that. And there's websites for you to look up where you can see what the meaning of those numbers are, and synchronicities. Now I'll go into an example of my own. Anytime my path was going to cross with a soul contract of mine, I'd first have a dream about him. I'd have two in a row. And then I would see him everywhere and everything, like videos. Any video I'd watch, I'd see his face. Anytime, like say I'm at the park and some guy looks just like him, that crosses my path. And then, 48 hours later, I would run into the person, so the divine, and I mentioned this in other lives, the divine will, whatever your spirituality is, the divine will find some way to give you that message and for you to understand it. So if you don't believe that your body is capable of being receptive to messages from the divine, then you're going to block all the help and guidance that could definitely help you navigate your life plan, like whatever your soul purpose is. So, dreams, anything, it will make you feel uncomfortable. It'll make you feel anxious and alert, for me, I'd feel something touch me for angel numbers, and then I'd look at the clock to see what time it was. I'd feel like just this, something touch me. Like I'd feel an energetical thing go up me. No, it's not the wind. No, it's not this. I'd have that all the time. And then when I looked at the angel number, it would coincide with what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what's going on around me right now. I've had certain instances, big moments of my life where I've had instant understanding. I've had big moments, like say with like a confrontation, a dissolution of something. To me, it felt when I was being internally guided, I was being divinely guided in that moment. When I was being internally guided in that moment, it would seem like time would go very still for me, and I was seeing things in slow motion, and I just had this inner knowing of what was expected of me. Example I have is when I went through domestic violence, the last and final act. I knew it was coming. I was warned that it was going to come. I didn't know when it was going to come, but I was told that once it happened, I need to listen and I need to watch and wait. Well, I did. So in that moment, I just had this, everything seemed to slow down in my perception. And then I had this inner knowing, okay, I have to let him hit me. I have to let him put a mark on me because this is going to change my life. You know, all the issues I had to go through before, everything's going to fall in place. I just have to listen to this. And once that happened, everything did fall into place. I just knew I had this inner knowing that I needed to listen and I needed to watch what was going on, and I would have the answer I needed, and I did. Physiological manifestations of this, if this chakra is in dysfunction: arthritis, gastric ulcers, colon, intestinal issues, diabetes, indigestion, anorexia, bulimia, and hepatitis. And the energies of this week is going to coincide with something called the dark night of the soul. Sounds very ominous, sounds very scary. It's a part of spiritual awakening, okay? And it's a spiritual awakening. There's 6 stages of them, according to Christina Lopez. I hope it's Lopez, not Lopes. But she's narrowed it down to 6 stages, okay? And the 6 stages, in order for you to go from a 3D to a 5D world, because right now the planet is leveling up. It's hiring its vibrations because it has to. Look at our world. You know, there's so much destruction. The planet, the world is scared that it's about to die, essentially. Like it's reached a level of warning, and that's why a lot of people are turning to spirituality. They're turning to this because our souls are being called to heighten our vibration so that we can better be in this world that's coming to us, that's happening for us. Okay. And in this stage called the dark night of the soul, it lasts months to years. It's the soul triggers this on purpose. It's to move out of cycles of karma, okay? You're going to feel depression, anxiety, despair. It feels like you're dying, and that's true because part of you is dying. And like, you know, I talked about domestic violence. I went through this, and I've, unfortunately, I know plenty of women because, you know, domestic violence happens to 40% of domestic relationships. I knew plenty of women that went through it, and something that I would always say to them, because I personally experienced it, is you're going to have to feel like you would rather die than to experience another day in the way that you've lived. That can go to anything, not just domestic violence, but for me, like for someone to change or to change their life, they're going to have to feel like they'd rather die than to live another day that way. And I felt that way. And that's going to be a bottom point for you, but it's going to initially get you to where you need to go. You're going to be in that action. Your soul's going to start taking over. And it's going to be like, hey, we need to do this, this, and this, and this to get out of this. I don't want to be in this. This is beneath us. We're better than this. Fully agreed, you know? It's going to purge all heavy things weighing your soul down, bringing old wounds to the surface from this lifetime and previous lifetimes. So you're going to be forced to heal things in your soul that may not have even occurred in this lifetime, but it's going to be brought to the surface so that way that you can move to the next stage of enlightenment. How to deal with this is to surrender to divine timing, to surrender to the divine plan for all. I know it sounds really scary, and it's because it is. I've had to go through this. I'm going through it now. The things I talk about, it's because like I've recently had to educate myself on it because it's either I was guided to this or this is where I'm at. And there's 4 stages of the dark night to the soul, okay? There's the first phase, which is the tragedy, the chaos. Something big happens. If you're into tarot cards, think of the Tower. It's going to be something that is going to completely revolutionize your life. Like I said, for me, it was the domestic violence thing that I started the dark night of the soul with my first marriage, or I guess my only marriage. My first marriage, I had that. And the tragedy, like I said, I was guided to, hey, this is going to have to happen. And then things start clicking in place. So it goes into the next step, which is dissolution, where everything falls apart. I had a great career. I was at for almost 10 years, you know, that I worked so hard for. I made great money, you know. My ex and I were able to not have to use daycare, so I was able to keep my babies close to me, which was very important to me. everything fell apart. I had to get a new job. I had to get a new life. I've actually gone through this, I want to say at least 3 times, because it can take up to just a couple months or years. And each time I've had to level up, and each time I've leveled up, I went through a new spiritual enlightenment process, or uncovering of certain gifts. Each time I've went through this, and each time it's like your guide says to you, hey, I know you've been following me all this time. I know I've been guiding you to do things, okay? And we got you to this life you got right here. You're happy, right? You like this? Yeah? Well, you're going to have to leave all of this behind, because where we're going now, you can't bring all this with you. To get you where you need to go, you have to leave all this behind. You have to have, like the Wiccan breed, perfect love and perfect trust. You have to trust me. You have to love and think positively of expectations that you're going to have. We're going to do this, but you got to trust in it. You got to step blindly into the forest for a time. I've had to do that 3 times. And it's just like everything falls apart. And the best advice I can give somebody who's going through that is just to watch. Just sit there, calm yourself, ground yourself, practice that thing called detachment, and look at your life symbolically, okay? Go, hey, this is the current phase I'm at. I don't need to take it personally. I'm here. This is what I'm supposed to gather from this phase of my life. And here's what I have to do. Okay, well, here's my goal. Because that's how my intuition, and I do have prophetic sight, but my prophetic sight would just give me, here's your next goal you have to work towards. Here's what you have to do next. Okay. And then it's going to get to the third thing called the purge. You're going to figure out what matters and what doesn't. You're going to figure out what's important to you, and anything that's not, you're going to get rid of. Okay, this is relationships, this is situations, maybe even places. You might even have to start new. I've had to do that. Like move somewhere. I've had to do that. The fourth is reintegrate. And to go over the spiritual awakening process, there's, like I said, 6 stages. There's the wake up, okay? There's going to be that moment that makes you go, hey. For me, it was, I was haunted for a time. That's how I found out about myself. I was haunted for a really long time, and it took me a long time to figure out what was there, what it wanted. And that's what got me into, it's just what got me into everything. It's the starting point for me. And then you're going to have the second stage, which is the bliss, where everything's wonderful, everything's beautiful. I love this phase, which I kind of disagree on the fact that it goes away. Once you surrender to the divine, everything is beautiful, because if you project beauty out there, you're going to get it back. If you go out into the world thinking that you're going to do beautiful things and your life is beautiful, then you're going to attract those kind of situations to you. Versus if you go out thinking the world sucks and everybody hates you and it's working against you, that's the kind of situations you're going to attract. Okay. But it just made me I love going to the park and walking. I would just think everything was beautiful, even though I just experienced that tragedy or tragedies. For me, I think I felt that truly the blissful feeling 2 years ago. I met a soul contract of mine that was supposed to spiritually awaken me more, help me tap into more of my abilities. And when I got to that stage, everything was beautiful, for the first time in a long time. I was happy for the first time. I was in healthy relationships with people. I wasn't going through any kind of toxicity. I was stable. My kids and I have some kind of foundation for our lives. We're set up. We're finally, I felt respected. I felt loved. I felt taken care of. The third stage is the dark night. I just finished with the dark night. The dark night for me was a lot of crying, I feel like. About a year ago, I was given the next stage, but when I was given that prophetic sight of the next stage, like I said, the masculine energy would just feed it into your head. So he would overwhelm me with the visions, with the dreams and things of the next step. And they just told me I couldn't think about it. I couldn't worry about it. And I was like, okay, but you're showing me this every day, like it's going to happen tomorrow. And I feel like the dark night for me was, because I knew what the next step was, it was telling myself no a lot. No, you shouldn't eat that. No, don't talk to that person. I know you love them, but you can't take them with you this time to this journey for you. You can't take them with you. So they have to stay behind. And just telling myself no, like that I deserve better, that this goal was not only important for me, but it was important for my children, and just holding that belief. Number 4 stage is the void. That's the stage I'm currently at. The void is, they say it's where you have a complete disconnection with the divine, and you're at this funnel point where all the doors are seeming to close on you, and it's funneling you to where you need to be. Okay, this stage is the least fun for me. You'd think the dark night is, but the dark night, I knew it was healing. I knew it was whatever. The void, for anyone who is empathic or has any kind of psychic ability, the void is, I think, the worst. And I'll tell you why. I didn't have a disconnection with the divine. I have a very good relationship with the divine. But the divine pretty much said, hey, this is the next step for you. You know, that thing that your soul's been wanting this whole time, that's been imprinted on you. Little small backstory. I've had dreams of my twin flame since I was 16 years old. Technically, if you want to get technical about it, my twin flame was my first time. It wasn't my physical first time, but it was my first time mentally and spiritually. And I stopped having the dreams about him when I was 18. And it seems like ever since then, I've just had this pull, this urge that to find him. I had to find him. I went all over the country for him. You know, I each time, and if I tried to fight it, bad things would happen to me. Like, I remember I moved to Michigan because I felt I had to go there. And if I tried to do things that when my inner knowing said, hey, you need to go to this place now, or hey, we need to go here, we need to do this. If I tried to fight it and be like, no, that sounds unreasonable, bad things would happen to me. Like the brakes would go out in my car when I was coming off of an exit at nighttime. Just things wouldn't go my way. But if I followed my inner knowing, if I followed that pull that I had, which now I know is probably just like a tiny little white light of string that pulls me to that person, it would just, if I followed that, everything would work out. The moving, the money, whatever, everything would just line up, and I would just keep going. And this still even happened when I was married. You know, when I was with a different person in a relationship, whatever. My life ended up bringing me back towards where my twin flame was. It didn't matter, and then once I got to a catalytic point, that's when I had my tower moment. That's when I had my chaos, my tragedy, you know, spiral from there to make room for whatever my soul was supposed to have. But my guide goes, hey, you're going to have everything you ever wanted. You have your foundation, you have your stability, your whatever. But here's the thing. You cannot ask us about it. It's going to happen in divine right time. You need to surrender. Okay, so I can't know anything about it. And if I ask, they were going to lie to me. That's what they told me. If you ask, they would lie. And so that seems easy enough. However, I was also still at the time being bombarded with dreams and visions. And it would just be like whatever variations there were out there, I was getting visions and dreams about them. It almost drove me insane. Because, like, say you get the same dream for 2 months about, say, a soul contract that's supposed to come. And you can't ask about it or anything, but it fills you with anxiety. You know, it fills you with anxiety. It fills you with this, like, oh my God, like, when's this going to happen? You know, do I need to be prepared? You know, and my support, you know, in the meantime, while I'm going through this, they'd give me tidbits of information, you know, like, oh, hey, this whole contract's going to come, and you need to be very wary of them. You need to be very cautious. It's like, okay, which one of these dreams are you talking about? So but they flat out told me they would lie to me. That any, say, tarot reading I tried to get, they would just reinforce that original prophecy that they gave me. Hey, your person's coming, whatever. And then if I tried to ask it myself, they would lie. And they flat out told me they would lie. So it's just confusion. So The void for me, you have to if you are empathic or anything, you have to force yourself to a point of darkness. You have to force your point to a point of just standstill and rest, and you can't even remotely look into the dream or the vision at all. Like, you can't even pay attention to it, otherwise you will attract things to you that's not necessary for you, because it's a test. It's a test of divine trust, your trust and the divine and the timing. So I get the reward I want, but I'm not allowed to ask about it. I'm not allowed to ask. I'm not allowed to know when it'll happen. But that was my void, and I absolutely hate it. I really truly do. It's the worst feeling I've ever had. The fifth stage is groundedness, where you have stability, where everything's stable and you're good. And then the sixth stage is finding out your purpose or your soul mission. Okay. So if you really want to find out more about the Dark Night of the Soul, like I said, I just gave you a brief synopsis of what I had to learn myself. I will post her video in my comment section, or my bio or whatever, for you to check her out. Her name is Christina. Like I said, I hope it's Lopez, but it's Lopes. Lopez. She's really good at explaining. It goes real in depth to each stage. But that's what this week's about. It could definitely trigger a dark night of the soul for people. It definitely could be a wake-up call for a lot of people. And just taking responsibility for your actions. Practicing that self-care, practicing having boundaries and the responsibility to yourself to enforce those boundaries and to make good decisions for yourself, for your mind, body, and soul. That's Belina, the Spark to the Self. Thank you for joining me. Remember, if you like this video, please like it, share it, or subscribe to get more of these. I do these about once a week, but it's really just whenever I'm intuitively guided to do this. I wake up with like a dream or something, and I figure it out and I write it out, and it takes me like a whole day, but just put that notification button on so you have it once I have it. Thank you. Bye.